Today we're excited to have a special guest with us, Anna, a fellow YouTuber who goes by the name Panda Boss. In honour of Women's History Month, we wanted to chat to a woman who is achieving great things and really raising awareness to other women about financial freedom. We'll also be having a chat about shared ownership and Anna's FIRE journey. Hello and welcome back to our channel and podcast. My name is Gemma and here at WIS we talk about all things relating to money, mortgages and positive money mindset. So if that interests you, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the thumbs up. It really helps with our YouTube algorithm and means that you won't miss out on any of our videos. On today's podcast of Let's Talk Money and Mortgages, we have Anna with us. Anna makes videos on personal finance and bossing life. She has some great hints and tips and ideas for side hustles and getting out of debt, amongst many other things on her channel. Hi Anna, thank you for joining us today.
Hi Gemma, thank you so much for having me. It's going to be great.
Well, I actually started following you last year when I was looking for inspiration to get my finances in order. And I just wanted you to kind of tell everybody a little bit more about your financial story.
Yeah, of course. So I think it's an interesting one because I essentially got into debt pretty much from when I left uni, and I'm not even talking about like uni debt. I got my first sort of proper job and decided to take out a loan, and one thing led to another. You know, I had this great feeling of, ooh, I can just get money that I don't have and spend it. It's great. So I just kept being in this cycle of debt of going, oh, why don't I take out another loan and another credit card and refinance this loan and put more onto it, and constantly spending on things like laptops and cameras and holidays and things. So it was a long time before I sort of realized that I should get my stuff together and get better at finances.
Right, because it kind of feels like free money, doesn't it, when you're younger? You're like, oh, it's a credit card, it's free.
Yeah. It's amazing, like just how much you can get sucked into it, and quite scary, I think as well, when you really think about it, because I was 20 or 21 at the time with like a very minimal salary, and I just don't think that you should be able to take out such loans at such an age. So yeah, I basically, up until I was 28, I was in debt the whole time. It was only December just gone that I've completely paid everything off.
Firstly, congratulations. That's an amazing achievement. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it felt literally just like weight off my shoulders. It was amazing.
Yeah, I bet. I'm really curious. What was that turning point that kind of you said to yourself, you know what, I can't do this. I've got to change my habits?
It was actually in 2019. I essentially had like a bit of a mental breakdown, and I didn't realize I was in it whilst I was in it. And then it's just sort of got to a peak where I actually had a proper breakdown. And that's the point I realized that that's what was happening. And I got signed off work for 5 weeks. And I went to spend some time with my family. So my family now all live in Poland. And my doctor was basically like, I'm scared of you being at home by yourself because I live on my own. She was like, I'm going to sign you off for 5 weeks, like go spend time with your family. So I did that. I sort of came out of the doctor's office, went online, booked the next available ticket to Poland. And that was sort of my turning point. I went there and I was like, this is really nice being with my family, not having to worry about work, and the life there is so different. You know, they live in a very small town where the pace of life is so different. So I live in London, and it just made me sort of revisit everything and go, I don't want to live in London. I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to be like, I have to be in this highly stressful job just so I can cover my mortgage and my debts. That kind of made me discover the whole financial independence movement and go, I want this. And that's where I sort of started the whole working loads of side hustles and jobs and focusing on debt.
That leads me to my next question. So I was going to say, like, what are your top tips for getting out of debt? And I know that I've watched lots of videos on your side hustles. So could you share those with us, please?
Yeah, of course. So I think for me, the best thing to do is start a budget. That was like, if nothing else, that's the biggest lifesaver. Budgeting sort of a few months ahead and knowing, you know, a decision you make now, how does that impact your finances going forward? And that in itself makes you reevaluate how much you're spending on what, and gets you to, I guess, limit the things you shouldn't be spending your money on, and helps you find those extra bits of money to pay off the debt quicker. You don't want to just be paying the minimum repayments, because then you're just basically forever chasing debt. And then increasing income, decreasing expenditure. So there were weeks where I would challenge myself, make it fun, make it a game. I was like, right, can I do just £20 on food for this week? And what can I do here? And, all these little things that people might not think add up, but they really do. So even if, my normal spend per week was £50 and that week I spent 20, that's £30 to put towards the debt. And over time, that really chips away. One of the other things was sort of consolidating the debt and utilizing all the offers that you can have. It can be harder if you have really bad credit rating, but not impossible. But things like 0% interest credit cards. So I was constantly shifting the money, going, okay, this credit card now is 0% for 6 months. So I'm not paying any interest, I'm paying more than the minimum. And then at the end of that, find another 0% card. It's just making sure you have no interest on your debt, or as little interest as possible. The other way you can do it is, if you have loads of credit cards and loads of loans, consolidate it into one, providing you can get a better rate in that one loan. Because quite often, if you take out a bigger loan, it's actually a smaller percentage. So if you've got, a credit card at 20% and a loan at 16%, and you can consolidate it into a loan at 4%, it ends up being better.
Well, thank you for those tips. And I know, as another fellow woman working in the finance industry, definitely I wouldn't want to say a man's world, but I know it's slowly changing, but I feel like it kind of is still. Do you have any tips for other women who are working in the industry that you kind of want to put out there for them?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to try and stay away from like the cheesy tips, but one of the things that I find really worked for me is not being scared to speak to people who are senior. So for me, I really truly believe one of the things that helped me was I never had this barrier of like, oh, that person's a director, so I can't speak to them, or being like really stiff and scared of speaking to them. I was always just like, everyone's a person, everyone's just doing their best. They're not an alien, they're not going to like eat you. I don't know about your experience, but for me personally, what I've seen is that women in my life tend to be a bit more shy. And I think that kind of can hinder those relationships with senior people. So just being able to chat, going, how do you think I can progress in my career? A lot of senior leaders like that, just saying, you're being forward and actually taking charge of your career.
Yeah, confidence is key.
Yeah, exactly.
And another video that I watched last year was one where you spoke about your flat being shared ownership. And, we would love to hear more about your personal experience using the scheme. A lot of our clients are very interested in, their first-time buyers, and they're, always asking about help to buy and shared ownership. I know you purchased, as you said, somewhere in London, right?
Yes, I did, yeah. It was pretty much the only way I could buy a place in London was through one of the schemes.
So was that the main thing that attracted you to the scheme then?
Yeah, it was mostly the attraction of needing a smaller deposit. And I knew that, if I was going to stay in London, I couldn't afford to buy somewhere completely. And I didn't want to sort of rent completely either. I just was worried that would be just completely throwing money away. So what attracted me to it was I could at least half own the place and be paying less rent, therefore at least a little bit of the portion of, I still see all of it as rent really, but at least I know a portion of it is paying off equity that I will get back and that will hopefully grow.
Yeah, and I always think that hindsight is a wonderful thing, but if you could go back in time, if you had a time machine, what things do you know now that you really wish that you'd known before doing the scheme?
Ooh, that's
always something.
I'm having a lot of issues at the moment actually with things like service charge, and I don't think it's related to the scheme, but I think I would have potentially done a bit more research into sort of apartment living versus like a house. I think that there's a lot of things people don't realize come with owning or living in a flat, where you are actually liable for a lot of things that I wasn't aware that necessarily would be the case. So, for example, even though I own 40% of the property, even though I only own 40% of the property, I am treated as if I owned 100%. So if there are any repairs, any issues, that all falls to me completely.
Right.
And you kind of have no say over things like what the managing agent spends money on and how much service charge they charge and things like that. So those have been really, really tough things to deal with. And another thing was, for example, the fact that I'm locked into my energy company. So I can't change. I can't be like, what's the best deal for me for heating? I can't.
Yeah.
I'm locked into one provider. I can't change it, and they can just charge me whatever they want. So I wouldn't do it, I think, forever. I think it's a great way to sort of get on the property ladder, because, you know, as the property appreciates, so will your equity. And therefore, when I sell, providing I sell at profit, I will make 40% of that increase in full equity. You know, if you're a young professional who's like, I'm going to stick around in London for a long time, well, maybe not a long time, but for a decent while, and then I plan to move out and have my dream home in the countryside. It's a great way to build your equity. And, you know, rents in London, I was having this conversation with my friend recently. She's looking for a new place to rent, and she just can't believe how extortionate the rents are. So I'm actually paying less in rent and mortgage than she is in rent. So it's...
Oh, that's good then, you know, for that, from that aspect.
Yeah. Because the rent that you pay with shared ownership is actually subsidized. So you don't pay sort of the full market rent. So for me, it's sort of, I rent 60%. So they work out the market value of the rent here. Then I pay 60% of it, but then they reduce it as well. So it always works out cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what's next for Panda Boss? And I feel funny calling you Panda Boss. It's like, is there a reason that you call yourself Panda Boss? Like, where did the name Panda come from?
So I get this question all the time, actually. It's a weird one. And I think, you know, had I known that my channel would become as big as it has, I probably would have thought of a different name. But it's too late now. It's a brand. It's a brand. I'm going with it. But it's a funny story. It's actually, I had an ex-boyfriend many years ago, and his pet name for me was Panda. And once we broke up, I didn't want to hate the word panda. I just sort of decided to own it and like brand it. And I used to have like a fitness channel where like I used Fit Panda at the time. And when I was trying to think of a name here, I was like, okay, so Panda standard, I'm going to use Panda. And then I was like, well, the channel is going to be about bossing life and things. So it just formulated Panda Boss. I didn't want to use my name because it's just so boring. So I think unless you're well known, it's a lot harder to sort of get out there and brand. So yeah, it's a strange one, because I think sometimes I've told people that and they just assume that, I don't know, I'm still hung up on my ex. I'm just like, I'm really, really like I would not go there again. But it just sort of happened. It became like a brand for me rather than that. So.
Oh, that's great. My sister's favourite animal is a panda, so I felt like I had to ask.
But I know you asked what's next. So I'm basically currently just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I definitely at some point, you know, want to take it full time, but I'm not at the point yet where I can risk, you know, not being able to pay the mortgage. So at the moment, no plans to scale. Just going to keep sort of putting out the videos and the content I'm doing. And then eventually, once I can quit my job and go full time, then I'll be scaling up.
Yeah, and I know you're on your FIRE journey. I just wondered if you had any top tips for other women who are working on their finances too.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really believing that you can do it. I think a big change that I saw in my life and my finances, and it's funny because if you said this to me before I started and became more successful at it, I would have laughed at you and been like, oh, literally so many people say this, it's just, you know, it's not anything. But it's a complete mindset shift. You know, I completely started believing that I can achieve it, I can do it, I can increase my income, I can get out of debt, and really 100% having that mindset of wealth. And my life's just completely changed since. And like I said, you know, a couple of years ago, I've been like, what are you talking about? But a lot of people talk about, for example, giving money away to charities and things to show that you've got this wealth mindset and you're not saying you're lacking anything. And I found that sort of the more I've started doing that, the more wealth I've had come to me, which is insane. I know how it sounds, but it all comes down to mindset. So if there was one thing I would say, it's definitely that.
Yeah, the law of attraction, huh?
Yeah. I remember first reading about it and just being like, oh, this is so wishy-washy. But the more I don't even practice it consciously. I think it's just become like a natural thing to me where I just believe in it so much, and I'm having those visions of me in a few years when I'm financially independent and like completely believing in it. It's like a natural thing. And I think when I didn't believe in it, it was the whole like literally just trying to sit there and like consciously do it, which I found really difficult.
Yeah.
But if you find something you naturally just can picture and want, I think that's when it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned before when you went back to Poland, and I know that you've got a little project over there, haven't you? Something you're doing.
Yes. So I'm building a house.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I'm finally getting some traction. I've got this all my subscribers would be like, oh, not the pole again. I've got a pole in the middle of my land that means I can't start the build. And it's been a bit of a saga back and forth, but finally had some traction today on potentially getting rid of the pole. So once I've paid to get that done,
The
I
pole.
might start building. Yeah.
Of all things that could get in the way.
Yeah, it's mad. But the good thing is it meant that I got the land at a discount because they knew it would be a bit of a faff to get rid of it, and that you couldn't build whilst having it there. So, all about the saving money.
Silver lining. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Anna. It's really inspiring to others who really want a boss life. And I just wanted to remind everybody that these points are Anna's personal experience and they may or may not be applicable to you. So please talk to an advisor if you're unsure whether these suggestions are suitable for you. If you don't have a mortgage broker and you're interested in shared ownership, I'll leave our WS contact details below, as we're always happy to help first-time buyers get on the property ladder. I will also leave Anna's channel link below if you'd like to see some more of her videos. Just a little reminder that our mortgage is secured against your home. It could be repossessed if you do not keep up with your mortgage repayments. Thank you again for joining us today. We'll be back next week with another episode of Let's Talk Money and Mortgages. Have a great day, stay safe, and we'll see you again soon.